The first thing I read today wasn't a name. It was a countdown. Hollis, an adult yellow Labrador guide dog, had 48 hours printed on the card above his kennel. My name is Alton. I'm 79. I walk with a cane, and I live alone on the quiet edge of Fort Collins, Colorado. 2 weeks ago, my old Labrador, Marlowe, died at 12, and the house stopped feeling like a place meant for breathing. I told myself I was fine until I realized I was talking to the walls just to hear a voice. So I came to the shelter to meet a dog, not a puppy, not a project, just a Labrador who could sit beside my chair and make the hours feel human again. The front desk was polite, but the workers' eyes kept dropping to my cane, then back to my face. I didn't blame them. A big dog is weight. A big dog is walks. A big dog is life, every single day. The kennels were loud with young pups and bouncing dogs. Paws hit metal. Tails slapped walls. Every rescued puppy seemed to shout, "Pick me, pick me." And in the middle of all that noise, I saw Hollis, a grown Labrador, tucked into the far shadow like he was trying not to take up space. No jumping, no barking, just eyes that held steady, like he'd been trained to wait even when waiting hurt. I stepped closer, and the card above him felt heavier than my whole body. Hollis, retired guide dog, scheduled euthanasia in 48 hours. My mouth went dry. I looked back at the staff and forced the words out. How does a Labrador like him end up with a timer on his life? I hated how fast my heart started bargaining, as if a number on a card could be talked out of existing. A young worker named Tessa swallowed and nodded toward the kennel. "He's been here almost a year," she said. 11 months. Her voice wasn't cruel. It was tired, like someone who has repeated the same sad sentence to too many people. She told me Hollis was a guide dog that couldn't work the way the program needed anymore. Not mean, not broken, just older, too careful. So he came here with his papers and his manners and that quiet Labrador face that doesn't beg. And day after day, families walked past him to reach the noisy puppy pens. I looked at Hollis through the bars. His adult Labrador body stayed still, but his eyes tracked every movement I made. "Wait," those eyes seemed to say. "Don't get your hopes up." I saw a worn harness hook on the wall outside his kennel, untouched, like a job taken away. I felt my cane tremble in my hand. Tessa kept talking, trying to make it sound practical. "This is an overcrowded municipal shelter. When the runs fill, they make impossible choices. Big dogs cost more space. People scroll past adult dogs. Retired guide dogs don't fit into people's picture of fun." I heard myself whisper, "He thinks nobody's coming." And Tessa answered softly, "He stopped barking months ago." I leaned closer to my Labrador, slow enough not to scare him. "Hollis," I said, "I'm right here." And for the first time, his tail moved once like a door cracking open. I turned to Tessa. "Open it," I said. "Let me meet this dog." And the latch didn't move right away. Tessa's hand stayed on the latch like it was heavier than metal. I could tell she'd seen too many people say maybe and leave. She glanced at my cane again, then at the adult Labrador in the shadow. "You're sure?" she asked. I nodded, even though my throat was tight. "Hollis," I said again, slow and clear. The Labrador guide dog lifted his head a little higher. He didn't rush. He didn't perform. He just watched my shoes, my knees, my breathing, like he was mapping me. Tessa opened the kennel. The sound was small, but Hollis flinched like he expected it to close on him. I didn't step in fast. I crouched the best I could, one hand on my cane, the other held low. "Hey, buddy," I whispered. "You don't have to do anything." The yellow Labrador took one step, then another. His nails made a soft click on the concrete. He stopped close enough for me to feel his warm breath on my knuckles. His nose touched my hand, gentle, professional, almost careful. For a second, I smelled clean soap and kennel air and something else, patience. My eyes burned. I thought of Marlowe and the way he used to lean into my leg when my hands shook. Hollis didn't lean. He waited like he was asking permission to belong. "Can I say hello properly?" I asked. Tessa swallowed. "Of course," she said, and her voice cracked. I slid my palm along Hollis's cheek. The Labrador didn't pull away. His tail moved once, then twice, like he remembered how. I looked at the card again, 48 hours. I turned to Tessa. "Start the paperwork," I said. "We're going home." And Hollis chose that moment to step fully into the light. The pen felt like a trap until Hollis stepped out beside me. An adult Labrador should have been heavy and loud in that hallway. This Labrador was quiet, like he was saving his energy for something important. Tessa clipped a simple slip lead on him and handed it to me. My hand shook, and the guide dog didn't flinch. He moved close to my cane, matching the tap of it, one careful step at a time. When I drifted left, Hollis shifted his shoulder and put me back on line. Not force, not panic, just a steady dog saying, "I've got you." Outside, the winter air hit my lungs, and I realized I hadn't breathed deep in weeks. Cars passed, people came and went, and my rescued dog kept checking my knees. At the curb, the Labrador stopped so fast I almost bumped him. Then I saw why. A delivery van rolled through the lot too close. Hollis waited until it cleared, then guided me forward like we'd done it forever. Tessa watched from the doorway with her arms folded tight. "You sure you can handle a big dog?" she asked, trying to smile. I looked at Hollis and heard my own answer before I spoke it. "I think he's handling me." If you've ever walked out of a shelter with a dog you barely know, you understand that fear. I wasn't scared of Hollis. I was scared of failing him. We drove in silence to my small house in Fort Collins, Colorado. Hollis sat in the back like a trained Labrador, eyes forward, body still. When we stopped, he didn't jump out. He waited for my door, then waited for my first step. At my porch, the Labrador froze and stared into the dark doorway. His ears lifted once, like he was listening for a command that never came, and when I whispered home, Hollis didn't move yet. I opened the door, and my house didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like a place that had been waiting to be forgiven. Hollis, my adult yellow Labrador, stood on the porch and didn't rush in. He sniffed the threshold like it mattered. He looked at my cane, then at my face, then back to the floor. A guide dog checks first, even when nobody asked him to. "Come on, buddy," I said. "This is home." The Labrador stepped inside with the kind of quiet you only see in a trained dog. No spinning, no scrambling for approval, just careful paws on the rug and one slow sweep of his nose through the air. I showed him water first, then the spot by the window where the sun lands in the afternoon, then the hallway because he kept glancing toward it like he was counting exits. He followed my pace, close, steady, my dog choosing my tempo instead of pulling me forward. On the shelf in the living room sat a framed photo of Marlowe, my old Labrador. I hadn't moved it. I couldn't. I lifted the frame and my hands betrayed me. My eyes got hot and I whispered, "You would have liked him." Hollis walked up and rested his head against my knee. Not dramatic, not needy, just present. That simple weight from a big Labrador dog made the room feel less hollow. Night came early. I laid out a blanket on the floor, nervous that my rescued dog would pace or cry. Hollis ignored it. He walked straight to my bed and curled in the exact place Marlowe used to sleep, right beside my shoes. He let out one long, calm breath, like a dog clocking in for the night shift. I stood there smiling and hurting at the same time. I turned off the lamp. In the dark, I reached my hand over the edge of the mattress, and Hollis didn't move away. I woke up and reached my hand down like I'd done for 12 straight years. This time, my fingers found fur. Warm, real, steady. Hollis, my adult yellow Labrador, was curled beside my bed in the exact spot Marlowe used to claim. I didn't speak. I just rested my palm on my Labrador's shoulder and let the morning start without fighting it. The days that followed were simple. A slow breakfast, a short walk, my cane tapping, his paws matching it. Hollis moved like a guide dog even in a quiet neighborhood, watching curbs, pausing at corners, keeping his body close enough to correct me without pushing. I kept telling myself this rescue dog was retired. He never acted retired. He acted like a Labrador who still believed a human life was his responsibility. One mild afternoon, we went to the park near City Park in Fort Collins. I sat for a minute on a bench to rest my legs, and Hollis stayed at my knee, calm as a stone. Then I saw them. A woman around 65, walking with a younger guide dog in a clean harness, moving with that practiced rhythm I recognized from Hollis. My Labrador's head lifted, his ears went forward, and he made one low, dull sound, almost swallowed, like a word he wasn't allowed to say. The woman stopped in the middle of the path. I started to apologize. "I'm sorry, ma'am, he didn't mean to scare you." She didn't look at me. She looked at my Labrador like she was seeing a ghost step into daylight. "I know that voice," she whispered. Then she said his name clear and shaking. "Hollis?" She kept staring at Hollis like the ground had moved under her. Her younger guide dog in the clean harness stood perfectly still at her left knee. My adult yellow Labrador stayed pressed to my leg, calm, watching her hands. I had him almost 7 years, she said, and her voice broke on the word him. Hollis was my guide dog, my best friend, my whole map. Before me, he had another family. Then I got him, and for a long time I wasn't alone anymore. She wiped her face and tried to breathe. I'm alone, she said, like it was an apology, and I couldn't afford 2 dogs. When the school told me he was being retired, they brought me a younger guide dog. I thought Hollis would be placed quickly. I never imagined a Labrador like him could end up in a shelter. I never imagined I'd see this dog again. Hollis made that low sound once more, softer now. He stepped forward, slow and careful, like he was asking permission to remember. When she held out her fingers, my Labrador touched them with his nose, then rested his forehead there for one long second. Her shoulders shook. The younger guide dog stayed steady, giving her space. I stood there with my cane and my heart split in two. Part of me wanted to say, he's safe, I promise. Part of me was terrified she would ask for him back. If you were in her place, what would you do when you loved a dog but couldn't keep him? Janine looked at me through tears. Please, she said, promise me this Labrador will never feel disposable again. And Hollis turned his head toward my hand, waiting for my answer. I swallowed and nodded. I promise, I said. This Labrador is home now. Janine let out a sound that wasn't a word. She pressed her forehead to Hollis's face. Then she stepped back fast, like staying one more second would break her. Her younger guide dog leaned into her knee. They turned down the path. Janine never looked back again. Hollis didn't bark. My Labrador just watched her go, tail still, eyes working, like he was storing the shape of her in silence. I stood there with my cane and a rescued dog who had already lost too many people. In my head, I'd kept hearing the shelter card. 48 hours, 11 months alone. I told myself I didn't save this Labrador to prove anything. I saved him because I knew what it felt like to be left behind. It started so normal, it scared me. I reached my hand down. My fingers found warm fur. Hollis, my adult yellow Labrador, breathing steady beside my bed. I stood up and went to the kitchen. The room tipped hard. My stomach dropped like I missed a step. I grabbed for the counter and found air. My knees folded. The kitchen floor rose up. Sound went far away. Then Hollis was there. Nose to my cheek, a wet lick, a paw on my shoulder, firm but careful. He made one low, urgent sound. I couldn't answer him. So my Labrador ran. He shot through the doggy door and barked at the street like an alarm that wouldn't quit. Bad dog, someone shouted. Hollis kept calling. He sprinted back to my porch. Then he called again. A woman's voice finally stopped. Hey, buddy, what's wrong? And the Labrador turned, leading her toward my door. My Labrador didn't lead her like a pet. He led her like a guide dog with a job. The woman followed Hollis through my porch like she already trusted him. My adult yellow Labrador kept glancing back to make sure she was still coming. She stepped into my kitchen and froze. Oh my God. I'm Renee, your neighbor. I was on the floor. My cane was tipped over like a fallen stick in the woods. Renee knelt and touched my shoulder. Sir, she said. Alton, can you hear me? Hollis pressed his Labrador body against my side, not in the way a trained dog blocks danger. He put his nose near my mouth like he was checking my breath. Then he looked at Renee and made that low sound again, urgent, controlled. Renee grabbed her phone with shaking fingers. I need an ambulance. My neighbor collapsed. Yes, he's older. Yes, he's breathing, and his Labrador is trying to wake him up. Hollis didn't stop working while she talked. He licked my cheek once, then stopped like he knew I needed air more than comfort. He placed his paw on my shoulder again, firm but careful. A guide dog touch, a Labrador signal. It's okay, Hollis. You did good. My Labrador's ears twitched at his name, and he stayed glued to me anyway. The sirens came closer. Red and blue light flashed through my window. Boots hit my porch. A paramedic pushed through the door. What happened? Renee pointed, breathless. I followed the dog. He barked until I came. It's his Labrador. He led me right here. Hollis watched the paramedics like he understood every tool in their hands. When they knelt beside me, my Labrador stepped back one pace, giving space, still guarding my head. One of them looked at Hollis and murmured, almost to himself, "Good dog." And my Labrador leaned in close, waiting for my first breath back. The paramedic knelt and said my name, Alton. Stay with me. My adult yellow Labrador stayed close, but he knew when to give room. Hollis took one step back and planted himself by my head like a guard. His eyes never left my face, his tail never moved. He was working. A cuff squeezed my arm. Cold fingers found my pulse. Someone tilted my chin and told me to breathe slow. The room tried to drift away again, and then Hollis pressed his nose to my cheek, checking. "Sir, you fainted," the paramedic said. "Do you remember standing up?" I tried to answer and my voice came out thin. I got up for water. They raised my legs. They checked my pressure lying down, then again when they helped me sit. The numbers changed fast, and I saw the paramedic's eyebrows lift. "Orthostatic hypotension," he said. "Your blood pressure drops when you stand." Hollis watched every motion like he understood the pattern of danger. When the medic reached for supplies, my Labrador's ears flicked. When a hand touched my shoulder, Hollis relaxed 1 inch, then held steady again. "Have you been drinking enough?" the medic asked. "Eating regular meals? And are you keeping up with your prescriptions?" I looked at my cane on the floor and felt ashamed. "Not really," I said. "I forget." Renee's hand covered her mouth. The medic looked at Hollis and shook his head once. "If your dog hadn't gotten help, this could have gone very differently. Tomorrow, move slow, drink water, and get your refills." My Labrador leaned in, and I felt his warm breath. In that moment, the shelter card came back like a punch. 48 hours, 11 months, a retired guide dog nobody wanted. I whispered, "You saved me, Hollis," and my Labrador rested his forehead against my hand, waiting for what comes next. Before they left, the paramedic made me repeat it back to him. "Stand up slow, drink water, and take your meds." The next day I moved like glass, slow, careful, one hand on my cane, one hand on Hollis's leash. My adult yellow Labrador walked at my left knee as if the sidewalk was a test he refused to fail. He stopped before every curb. He waited until my foot found the ground. Then the guide dog eased forward, one steady step at a time. I could feel him watching my hips and shoulders, reading the wobble before I did. Inside the store, the bright lights made me want to rush, and that's when Hollis corrected me. Not with force, with his body. A quiet block, a pause. A guide dog reminder to breathe and take the next step, not the fastest one. If you've ever thought an older rescue dog is too quiet to matter, you should have seen this Labrador work. At the counter, I heard myself say the diagnosis out loud. Orthostatic hypotension. The pharmacist nodded like it was common. To me, it sounded like a warning label on my life. Back home, Hollis didn't celebrate. He didn't act like a hero. He just stayed close. Every morning after that, my Labrador touched my sleeve with his mouth and tugged once, gentle and firm. That was his new command. Pills. Water. And one morning, before I even swung my legs out of bed, I heard a small clink on the floor beside my chair. The clink beside my chair wasn't an accident. It was a message. I looked down and saw the pill bottle resting on the floor. Hollis, my adult yellow Labrador, sat in front of it like he'd placed an important tool on my desk. His eyes didn't ask for praise. They asked for compliance. I laughed once, but it came out wet. Because this rescued dog wasn't just living with me. This Labrador was managing me. Quietly, patiently, like a retired guide dog who never learned how to stop protecting a human. I reached for the bottle and my hand shook. Hollis leaned in and touched my wrist with his nose, steady as a metronome. Pills. Water. Breathe. In my mind, I saw that shelter card again. 48 hours. 11 months alone. A big Labrador nobody chose because he wasn't a puppy anymore. And I realized something that hurt in a clean way. I didn't rescue Hollis to fix my grief. I rescued this dog because I recognized the look of being quietly passed over. If you're watching this as a dog lover, hear me clearly. An older Labrador can save you in ways a young puppy doesn't even understand yet. A calm, rescued dog can be the difference between a bad morning and your next sunrise. That day, I taped a simple note to my fridge, not a quote, not a slogan, just my Labrador's new rule. Slow, water, meds. And every morning, when my adult Labrador settles beside my bed, I remember the truth. We weren't too old to start over. We were exactly on time. Share this story so more rescue dogs, more abandoned dogs, and more adult Labradors get chosen before the clock runs out. Together, we turn rescue into hope.